All right, so we got another patron request here, this time for Event Horizon, which I was shocked to see I haven't done. When they requested it, I was like, no, like I've definitely done that. And I looked, there's nothing. I swear I did this. The only thing I can imagine is that I did this in my podcast that I used to have in the Micah Madness back in the day. For those of you who remember that short-lived idea, wasn't that short-lived. I think it went on for like 6 months, but yeah. Anyway, who was there for the In the Micah Madness days? Those episodes are no longer available. Like they just don't exist anymore. That's a shame. I went looking for them not too long ago, and I can't seem to locate them on YouTube, on podcasting, on anything. So, seems like those hours of my life are gone. That's okay. So we still got the channel, and here we got time to make up for it right here. I had to have done this. I have to have done this. In fact, I'm almost positive I did this on the podcast. I'm trying to also think maybe somehow I did some collection video where I talked about this or something, or went on to another person's show. Or I just, I can't for the life of me believe I've never done this. So, because I remember talking about the deleted scenes and whatnot. So, I don't know. Anyway, Event Horizon, this is the Scream Factory release. Now, unfortunately, we had all hoped that what was going to happen with this Scream Factory release was that they were going to somehow miraculously pull out the lost footage, the depictions of hell that we've heard about, the infamous depictions of hell that were cut from the film because of pussy ass producers. I don't, at this point in 1997, I don't think they realized how important of a selling point deleted scenes and special features can be on like a DVD or something. So, huge mistake. Definitely the the fact that this footage seems to be just gone, just seems to be vanished. It doesn't seem to exist any longer. That kind of stuff upsets me so much. I'm glad to see that Eli Roth, and I'm hoping that this will start a trend, is starting his own production company that's going to be like somewhat crowd funded, and that they're going to be completely unrated, completely disconnected from studios. They're working with the guys that made Terrifier 2 and 3, or maybe just 3, that are getting these things released in theaters completely uncut. So that's very exciting. That's very exciting because horror needs to be able to be what it wants to be without having to worry about everything being edited out of it. Because this movie, even if it's not gory things, which I want that footage. I want the footage that was deleted that is lost for sure. I think that shit looked awesome from the very small little things that remain that we saw, concepts and pictures and whatever. But also, I feel like this movie's too short. I feel like this movie just isn't fleshed out enough, especially in some of its characters. And the fact that it's only an hour and a half, I just feel like this is such a bigger concept that it just isn't given enough time to breathe. I know they're trying to make it tight and they're trying to make it appeal to mass audiences. And, with a big budget like this and it being kind of sci fi horror, which is kind of a niche into itself, they've got to try to appeal to the broadest audience that would even be interested in something like this. So, like, I get the give and take here of like it's a lot of money versus not a lot of return. We got to make something that does appeal to more people in order to recoup our potential losses. So, like, I get all the arguments, but I guess at the end of the day, I'm just a selfish prick who wants what I want. And I just think that the film's legacy would be better for it, and that resales on this and just the name of it, of the film, will remain kind of iconic, and you'll be able to make money off of it for forever, right? If you make a really iconic, awesome film that appeals to genre fans are the most loyal to films that they love, right? Like, how many different copies of Halloween have you bought? Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I know I've bought a lot of different copies, a lot of different editions. They always got something new out. And this is still got a cult following for sure. This still definitely has a good following for it. But I don't know. I sometimes think that producers lack vision for the legacy of a film, its potential. So, anyways, all right, let's get into the movie itself. Let's talk about things. So, once again, this is from 1997. This is just directed by Paul W. S. Anderson, back when he was actually making good films, back when he was actually making fun, interesting films that were memorable and aren't garbage. I know he just put out that new one, like The Lost Lands. Is that what it was called? With Mila. Of course, he's always got to work with his wife. And Dave Bautista. I haven't seen it, but it has terrible reviews as expected because he just pretty much makes garbage these days. And that is a shame. And he's currently remaking or adapting House of the Dead. Oh, man. The infamous U-Bowl garbage movie, House of the Dead, which actually did get a sequel. I never saw it after how bad the original one is. I got to cover that on the channel at one point. I got to cover that and its sequel on the channel at one point because that'd probably be a lot of fun. I just remember it being abysmal. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if I already covered it because these days I can't seem to keep track of what I have and haven't done, clearly. But after having done near 2,000 videos, there's only so much that I can keep straight, including myself. Don't tell my wife. All right, so yeah, I mean, this has Sam Neill. It has Lawrence Fishburne. Those are the two big names attached to this. They're both great. You also have a lot of familiar faces in Jason Isaacs, as well as Sean Pertwee and Jolie Richardson, and others. But all right, so the opening of the movie has this like incorporation of the Paramount Mountain that kind of fades and blends into the film. I was really wondering because this happens a lot, right? Like when Sonic the Hedgehog starts and you get the rings, like Sonic's rings flying instead of the stars that surround the mountain. Like there's a lot of movies that do this gimmick. And this is 97. I am curious on what is the first film to do this, to take the production company's opening, whatever you call that, the opening, production logo or whatever, and incorporating that into the film in one way or another. Like, what was the first film to do that? I my assumption. So the thing that I can think the farthest back for would be Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Where it shows the mountain and then like it matches the one that blends out into Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's the same. It's the same mountain. Is that the first film? I'm sure I could have Googled it, but what fun would that be? You guys are going to be my sleuths and find that out for me. Yeah, I mean, as I said, Paul Thomas. See, I always want to say Paul Thomas Anderson. He probably, he had to distance himself by putting W.S. Anderson so people wouldn't think this was Paul Thomas Anderson. I don't know how you could possibly confuse the two. I could watch 2 seconds of any one of Paul W. Anderson's films versus Paul Thomas Anderson's films, and you're going to know instantaneously which one's which. They are drastically different directors, to say the least. But this is back when he made Mortal Kombat. He had made this, and he had made the very, very cool Kurt Russell film Soldier. Like he had a good string of very cool movies. But then he just, and I, when the original Resident Evil came out with Mila, even though it didn't follow the games like at all, It was a really cool action horror movie. I loved it. I saw it a ton of times. Unfortunately, the franchise kind of devolves into some of the shittiest CGI fest garbage movies I've ever watched. We covered the entire franchise here on the channel. I think we also did Raccoon City as well. Well, we did not do the TV show on Netflix. I think we watched one episode, but we didn't even cover it. But yeah, I mean, he was very promising. He also made Death Race is actually a pretty fun film. I think he made that a little later on. This is when he still had some integrity left. And now I don't know what I guess he's, I'll give the guy credit for just kind of doing his own thing. Like he's going off and he's making these kind of like higher budgeted, um, you know, what I would assume to him are fun films where he gets to hang out with his hot wife and make films that he enjoys making. I mean, that's the dream, right? I don't know how he gets funding for some of these because they just are like bomb after bomb after bomb. So you would think at some point, but I don't know. Some people are like, the prestige, the name attached to like I did Event Horizon and Mortal Kombat. You have this kind of pedigree that comes with certain titles that you've done that are familiar that they can market off of. Like he did the Resident Evil franchise, which was a big financial success, right? Like those movies made money. Obviously, they wouldn't have continued to keep making them, but he keeps riding that success, and keeps getting all of these bombs made, which I can't for the life of me understand. They star people who don't have a good track record financially. He hasn't come off of anything in a long while, so I don't get any of that. So yeah. Anyway, what are we 10 minutes into this, and I don't even think I've really talked about the film yet. Typical classic Sinister cinema. This is what you paid for. This is the Patron request. This is what someone is spending their hard-earned money on. Is me sitting here talking about God knows what. All right, so we get a text opening here that says 2015 first colony, like with permanent residence on the moon. This was made in 97, so they thought that in 18 years. I'm always fascinated with these. Like there has to be this kind of creative decision, right? Of how far into the future do we make it? If we make it 300 years in the future, that immediately disengages the audience with that's so in the future that it's not relevant to me. And then if you bring it low enough to where the audience is still going to be around, where it's 2015, they're like, oh, I'll be like 50 by then, right? I'll still be around for this. So that kind of immediately gets them engaged. But at the same time, they always take the technology, they always take it too far. It's always like, oh, in 10 years, we're going to be, teleporting. Like, no, we're not. The fuck we're not. We're in 2025 right now, right? This is 10 years after, right? What they're saying in this movie. And we're nowhere near colonizing Mars. Do we have the capability to put a permanent colony on Mars, or Mars, I'm sorry, the moon currently? I don't know. Maybe. I know Elon Musk is trying to get to Mars and put a colony there. Whether or not these people will achieve that goal or not, he said he was going to have them there in the next 10 years. That was like 15 years ago. So how close they are to actually achieving that goal, I don't know. But the moon's pretty close, it relatively speaking, compared to something like Mars. So could we put a colony on Mars that was sustainable right now with current technology? Probably. I don't know what the advantage of that would be outside of like we know the earth is dying and rich people and powerful people want to have a plan B, an escape plan. So who knows? I mean, maybe they're building something out there right now. Let's get into conspiracy theories now. I'm always fascinated by this, right? Like in Escape from New York. It's like in 1997, all prisoners will be sent into New York, and they're never to return. Like the entire, like the America's like most popular and beloved city in the whole country, right? New York City, like the Manhattan Island, the island. That we're gonna take that, we're gonna completely cut it off from the country, and we're gonna put people over there as prisoners. It's just such a random location. It's so ridiculous, but it's always just like such a jump in technology in such a short amount of time. They're always like, "Oh, we're gonna have flying cars." It's always flying cars. It's always flying cars in these movies. This seems to be the number one desire from all writers and just humans in general. Is like, when are we gonna have flying cars? It's 2025. We still don't have flying cars. We supposedly are gonna have like flying taxis that they're gonna start implementing in California for like uber rich people, where it's gonna fly up to their penthouse and take them home. I've read about this. I don't see this happening yet, but it's supposedly it's on the horizon. The event horizon, we'll see. All right, 2032, Mars mined for minerals. Yeah, this actually might be a reality. I don't know if it'll be Mars or it'll be like asteroids, but that is the next step here, because we're running out of resources on this planet, and they're going to have to start mining off world. Isn't this the plot of The Expanse? I only watched a few episodes, but I think that's what they're out there doing, right? Yeah. So I think this is very believable. Could we be doing that by 2032? Maybe. Maybe. 2040, Event Horizon launched and it disappears. And then 2047, we have our ship now that is going out. Now they get orders from command, I'm sure, and Dr. Weir is sent on board, and they are rushed off, unbeknownst to them, which this all seems very silly to me, that Weir arrives on board, is immediately put into stasis. They're immediately put into stasis, and they're rushed out when they're all supposed to be on leave. One of them has like a sick or disabled child. I don't know which. I couldn't really fully tell, but someone who might not be there when she gets back, or someone who really needs them. Um, and so they're like pushed out immediately. Like they're stressing, like, now, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go. And it's like, the ship has been missing for 7 years. It like, if there's anyone on board and they're still alive, they've been out there for 7 years. I don't think that you need to rush. And the ship seems to be still out there after 7 years. There doesn't seem to be a reason to need to move like they're moving. Like, the only thing I can come up with is Miller just wants to get out there as fast as possible so he can bring everyone back as fast as possible. But how long would it take? I mean, we basically see it in this. How long would it take to introduce Weir to the crew, and how long would it take them to be debriefed on what they're doing? Not long. It's a 5-minute scene. The whole thing might take an hour altogether, and they don't have an hour to just say, we're going after the Event Horizon. I mean, they could definitely have said, like, we can't tell you it's classified, we'll declassify it as soon as we can and send them out there. And they're like, this is bullshit, we should know what we're doing. And Miller is just like, I mean, my hands are tied here, I can't get us, like, they won't accept us. Like, if we try to land, they'll shoot us out of the sky, like we have orders, something like that. And then when they get out there, they're told, once it's declassified, or once they see it, they're like, what the hell is this? And then it's revealed, like, okay, I can't hold this any longer, obviously. we're going after the event horizon, and here's who I am. I don't know. I just don't buy how it's done. I think that there was an easier way to do it that made sense. So it's a nitpick. It doesn't really matter per se, but it takes me out of it a bit. There's some zero G CGI in here with like the floating cup and the floating this and this. This actually kind of reminds me of the opening shot of Fight Club when it's like making its way through the trash and all that. And then later in the movie when the apartment blows up, it's kind of that time period CGI. You can tell it's very similar because they're both very similar in times in which they came out. Fight Club 97. Is that right? I think that's about ish. It's 98, 97. So yeah, the CG feels almost identical. Um, and I knew there's certain things I write down and I look at them and I'm like, I'm gonna know what this is. I'm gonna know what this is. I don't. I don't know what this note says. Shit. What? I don't know. Anyways, maybe I'll figure it out. I will say this: space travel films like Alien and like this, they all have the same feeling. The ships all look the same. This ship kind of looks like the Nebuchadnezzar, speaking of Lawrence Fishburne. Any of these movies, I know they're not out in space. They're on Earth after like they've scorched the sun and there's this big raging battle between machine and man. But these kind of like spaceships, which is basically what the Nebuchadnezzar is, or the Nostromo from Alien or whatever, they all have just such a similar feeling. They all feel so identical to one another. Like this feels like it could be an alien, right? Like this feels like the Wayland Corporation made this ship. I don't know. There's definitely different ways that you can do it for sure. I've seen it done, but for the most part, especially the certain time periods, for the 80s and the 90s, the ships and the like look of things is almost always identical. All right, let's see. And why did I write that? I wrote 35 meta. What the fuck does that mean? I have no idea why I wrote that. That's crazy. And I just watched this. This is an old note. Sometimes I'm like, I haven't watched this in weeks. And I get it. No, I literally finished it and pressed record like within 5 minutes. I don't know. I don't know what the hell I wrote that for. That's so crazy to me. 35 meta. Anyway. All right. So I think I brought this up because it is done so often. The explanation of folding space and like give me a piece of paper and like point A to point B. What's the shortest distance? A straight line, right? No, the straightest is a right there. The amount of films that this is done in for this explanation is crazy. How many times do you think you've seen that done in a film? They fold the paper and they stick the pencil through. It's always the pencil through the paper and then they pull it out the other side. How many times? I've seen it so many. I've seen it so many. I have to have seen it 25, 30 times. At least. At least. I think I'm being moderate there with that estimation. I feel like I see it in any movie that deals with faster than light speed travel or like, black holes being created, a singularity being created. I I don't know, man. Yeah. Anyway, so just the title itself, Event Horizon, which is the boundary around a black hole to which there's no escape, right? Like all light and radiation and sound, anything that is on the cusp of the singularity event, the black hole that's pulling everything gravitationally into it. This is essentially the point of no return, right? There's no escaping this. So it's a good title, especially since the ship itself creates a literal black hole. But then hell also is a place that there's no escape from, that there's no return. I like the connection of like a black hole leads to hell, because it seems like something that makes logical sense, right? Um, and let's see, the sets in this, like within the ship and the the heart of the ship, um, that all of that stuff is really cool. I love the sets in this. They're familiar for sure, but they're still really impressive. When they turn the gravity on, the body falls to the ground and smashes because it's like frozen, like liquid nitrogen, like the T-1000 in Terminator 2 or something. I love that. I'm always a big fan of that type of shot. And yeah, Dr. Weir, of course, like a lot of scientists in these movies, is so arrogant. He's just like, nope, that's not possible. No, like this thing's totally safe. No, blah blah blah. Like, I'm a god and you're a peon. You're a peasant. I love when he says, like, in layman's terms, and then he gets into all of this science jargon, and they're like, really, bro? And he's like, I'm trying to dumb it down for you, and you're still too dumb to get it. It's like, fuck off. He knows what he's doing. He just has a fucking god complex. Um, when he's crawling through the vent tunnels and they're like lined with all these circuit boards, that's a cool visual. It's I don't really understand how it functions, because it number one, something like that would get so hot. You'd have to have such an incredible cooling station to keep all of those electronics from overheating and a total meltdown. But also, like, when he's crawling around in there, they don't seem to be housed. Maybe they are. Maybe they're behind like plexiglass or something that you can pull up. It doesn't look like it. But he'd be like crunching the circuit boards as he was crawling through there. But man, that is a seriously intense display of computing power, for sure. But for something like that, that would be literally creating a black hole. I would, yeah, I can only imagine that it would take an immense amount of computing power. So makes sense. Quantum computers now would obviously be the go-to in this scenario. When Justin is about to flush himself out the airlock, he kind of breaks out of his spell and he's like, Mama Bear, don't let me die. Because he says that, and the way he says it, it feels like purposely malicious. Like, it's so devastating that I can only assume that he's still under control and is purposely manipulating them to feel terrible, right? Like, he's going after her. She's a mom at heart, and to her, she can't be with her son, so she's kind of made the crew surrogate children, and he's the youngest on board, and he looks up to her as like the mother figure of the ship, and he's crying out to her much like her kid would be crying out to her. Like, I can't imagine that he's actually in control of what he's saying and his actions there. I think it's totally there, um, to be cruel, because I do think they have like control over them in their minds. But I don't know. What do you guys think on that one? Yeah, because all their pasts are coming back to haunt them. You got Miller, of course, with his his people, and he had to leave someone behind and burning, and this guy just keeps coming back. And then you've got the chick I was just mentioning, whose kid is back home, and he leads her to this brutal fall. She's like going after him, and she slips down this freaking well, and just smashes all the way down until she hits all of her legs. Everything, or just all of her legs. Like, she has like 15 of them now. Like, her whole body and both of her legs are just smashed unrecognizably. It's so brutal. Man, yeah, you don't get to see falls portrayed on like what they do to the body as well. A lot of the times in movies, like, people will just have hit the ground and they're just laying there like with some blood around them when they've fallen like 30-40 stories. This is such movie bullshit. Like, people's bodies, when they impact at that speed and velocity, they absolutely are obliterated. um, they do a good job of it actually in Halloween Kills, when that guy kills himself. I don't think he jumps high from a high enough place to do the kind of damage he does, honestly. But it was cool to see that he actually, like, his head was fucking just exploded. So that was cool. Let's see. Yeah, they finally decipher the Latin. It's always Latin. They always use Latin or some, dead language, right? Hi, babe. And he finally deciphers that it says "save yourself from hell." Yeah, dude, get the fuck out of there. That's so scary. And the crazy footage they find with, like, the depiction of hell. Honestly, of course, we could have saw more of this, but what we saw was pretty gnarly. Were a couple people being raped. That's what it looked like. It's so quick cut, it's hard to tell. But yeah, gnarly. This is definitely not a place you want to go. You're not gonna have a good time. When they're walking through the tunnel into, like, the heart of the ship, there's a spinning room. I'm not really sure what that's for exactly, but I went to, like, a fun house thing with my kids at Castles and Coasters here in Phoenix, and they had one of those, like, spinning tunnels where you walk through, and the outside spinning, and you're walking across a bridge. I've never in my life been dizzier, ever. That, I was fucked up beyond belief. I was walking through there. The whole room was so disorienting. I could literally not stand. I had to close my eyes and run through it. And what was really fucked up and kind of funny is that I was in there with my kids, and they were young. They were probably, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 or something like that. And they were screaming, like, "Dad, you left us, come back." And, like, I thought they were walking. I thought they were fine. I wasn't running off. I wasn't, like, abandoning them, right? Like, we weren't in danger or anything. I just thought that they would, like, I was like, "Dad's fucked up. I gotta go." Like, I ran through it. It wasn't that long. It was only maybe 15 feet. But I was just like, I literally felt like I was going to pass out. I thought I was going to fall over every which way. My equilibrium was fucked because I have an inner ear issue, whatever. So, like, I ran ahead. I literally closed my eyes and I just kind of, like, you know, barged ahead. And my kids were back there screaming, "Dad, Dad!" And I was like, "Just come to me." And they're like, "I can't. I'm scared." And I was like, "Oh my God! Like, stop! Like, just come." And they wouldn't. And I couldn't look, so I couldn't open my eyes. So, like, I had to, like, run back out onto the bridge and, like, put my hands out to, like, find them and grab them. And they were crying and screaming, and I was, like, trying to walk them backwards and keep my eyes closed so that I could bring them back out of there. Oh my God, we paid for that. So for Castles and Coasters, they have, like, a pass that allows you to do everything in the park, but there's, like, a couple things that aren't included, and that was one of them. So I actually paid extra for that torture. I mean, you want to talk about hell? That was my event horizon. I was sucked into hell there for a minute, and let me tell you, you don't want to go. Atone for your sins, to make peace with whatever gods you got, because you don't want to go to the hell that I was in that day. Holy fuck, guys. If you've never been that dizzy, if you've never had the whole world feel like it's rotating, I'm not talking about drunk dizzy. I'm talking about, like, a totally different level of where your equilibrium is shot, and you need to thank whatever is making you feel grounded and stationary on this planet, because holy fuck, I felt horrible. So it reminded me of that when I saw that spinning tunnel, and I was like, if that doesn't have any function, it just seems like it's cruel to even be in there. Weir's wife, his wife killed herself, and he has to keep, playing that out. It seems like he's this guy who's obsessed with his work. He is a workaholic. He's never home, and because he's never home, his wife kills herself. Now, this is terrible, of course, of course. In my personal opinion, she probably should have just divorced him and left. Killing yourself because your husband's never home seems a bit excessive. It's just my opinion. Um, I think you can just say, okay, if you're never going to be home, then I'm going to go find another husband. I'm going to go not be married at all. I'm gonna just go off and be alone. I already am. So fuck you. I'm gonna go have a life. I don't know. It just it seems excessive, but depression, of course, is no laughing matter. So if she was depressed and he wasn't there for her, and she killed herself because, and I will never say unalive. It's not happening. I don't care if they fucking take the channel down and delete every video I've ever had. I refuse to play that bullshit. No one's word policing me on that. I've already stated my opinions on this, as far as like using the word suicide or killing yourself or whatever. I think it is. I think it's very silly and very stupid to try to take the. It doesn't. I've stated my opinion on this. I don't need to get back into it. Anyways, they have Dr. Weir's eyes are cut out in this, and as opposed and as is others. And there's some really bad CG, which I will refer to as bad CGIs. I actually wrote that down because I thought it was funny. Bad CGIs. And then Weir strings up DJ so fast after he cuts him open and like hangs him. Miller is running as he's alive, and somehow by the time he gets there, he's already completely spliced him open. All of his innards are out, and he is backwards, hanging from the wall from a bunch of different strings and whatever. Dude, that would take so long, and you would not be able to, as one person, do it. But this is supposed to be supernatural, so I don't know. This definitely is trying to be Hellraiser. There's no doubt about it. There's a literal like scene in this where the wife, his ex-wife, basically says almost verbatim, like, we have such sights to show you. It's like, I have such things to show you, I think is what she says. It's like so close. I have such things to show. I think that's what it was. And they also kind of have like a Back to the Future kind of line here where he's like, where we're going, we don't need eyes. I thought that was pretty funny as well. We're just kind of have a hodgepodge of different films kind of making up this amalgamation of a film. They're on the ship from Alien. They're spitting out lines from Back to the Future, and it just keeps going. And they have the plot line of Hellraiser mixed in. And there's this kind of like unintentional or maybe intentional humorous moment when Weir and Miller are kind of having at it, and he's pointing a gun at him, and he's just about to turn on the event horizon and suck them into hell or whatever. And what's his name? Cooper is like, he'd been pushed out into space, but then he's making his way back by blowing his oxygen tanks and aiming himself at the ship. Almost every line of Cooper is kind of like either intentionally funny or unintentionally funny. I kind of found that humorous, which I guess was the intention or not the intention. But there's literally like he's coming at the ship, and he's like, that's right, bitches, something like that. Like, that's right, I'm back. And then he's like, oh shit, I can't stop. This is like literally sandwiched right in between a super serious scene and a super serious scene that are supposed to be scary, supposed to be intense, supposed to be thrilling. And then there's this like random piece of humor from like almost a goofball character. It's a very weird placed moment. And then right before that, he's like, if you shoot at me and you miss, you'll breach the hull. And he's like, what makes you think I'll miss? Then 2 seconds later, Cooper's doing the jokey gag that shouldn't be there, and then Weir aims right at Glass and shoots at him for no reason. There's no reason for this. Cooper has no way into the ship. He has no ability to thwart anything that Weir's trying to achieve. He just says something which I don't even understand how they're hearing it. I don't even know how they know he's there outside of like the light on his helmet shining through the glass. But I don't know what prompts Weir when he just said, like, what makes you think I'll miss? I don't want to hit the hull. He's going to get sucked out into space, right? He then shoots directly at the glass. Shoot the glass. Name that movie. And he hits it, which then immediately breaches the hole, and then turns and immediately tries to shoot it at Miller, who's jumping over a table, and he misses and breaches another part of the hole. So I don't understand this scene at all. There's inserted humor that shouldn't be there, and then also there's a stupid decision by a character who's very aware that he could breach the hole and then aims at glass to stop someone who's on the outside of a ship who cannot get in. I don't know what he shot at him for. Like, what threat did he pose to him in that moment? He just reacted, but he's like from hell. He doesn't even have eyeballs. Like, it's a supernatural thing that's like controlling his actions in that moment, and it got scared. Like, what's the argument gonna be here? I don't understand this moment at all. It makes no fucking sense. So that was really stupid to me, and probably one of the dumbest things in the movie. I don't see any reason behind it other than plot convenience for the writers, who have like their back against a wall and they're like, I don't know, we wrote ourselves into this corner. I don't know what to do now. Like, how about, Cooper shows up and he shoots at him. For what reason? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. They also say, like, we're running out of oxygen. We only have 20 hours before we're out. And then they get down to like no time at all. So the oxygen is completely depleted. But then the hole's breached and oxygen is being sucked out into space for like 2 straight minutes. And then they close it and they still have plenty of oxygen to run around and do all the things that they're doing. And then obviously by the end of the movie, they go into stasis and they're going out and they're fine. So, like, they're still on that ship where they didn't have oxygen. Then they pulled all the oxygen tanks. She's like, we need 25 of them. So she grabs as many as she can, and then they try to run off with them, but still the ship has enough oxygen after having oxygen sucked out into space for 2 straight minutes. How would that actually work? Does anyone know? Does anybody know? I always see that in movies where, there's a little hole or there's a big hole or whatever, and it just keeps sucking and sucking and sucking and sucking and sucking. Sounds like a good time. But I just don't understand. Like, wouldn't it just kind of all suck out at once? Wouldn't it just be like kind of quick? Wouldn't it just like instantaneously just like boom, like out into space? Maybe it would be for like a second or two and then it'd just be out there. Kind of like if you just opened up the wall and water was on the outside, it would just kind of rush in really quick. Like in movies, it always is like rushing in like slowly, but in reality, it would just like it would go so fast. So this is just a movie thing, right? For convenience, because in reality, just the oxygen would be sucked out of the room and then they'd all just kind of suffocate and freeze to death, right? Because they always act like because they're inside the structure, that the vacuum and coldness of space and the lack of oxygen and all of that stuff wouldn't affect them because they're still inside and they have to like show that there's oxygen and like an atmosphere of some sort that's protecting them from the vacuum of space because they're holding on to something as it's like picking them up and trying to pull them out. None of this seems believable to me. I don't think this is what would happen at all. I don't know. Please explain to me if I'm wrong. Would it just continue to keep sucking oxygen and them out constantly over and over? And then once they sealed it off, like everything would remain like and return to normal homeostasis. Like, is that what would happen? I don't think so. I can't imagine that's the case. I cannot imagine that's the case. But I am no astrophysicist or anything, or whoever does that shit. I'm too stupid to even know who does it, let alone what they know. Anyway, and let's see. Yeah, and then yeah, Miller sacrifices himself. Stark, Justin, and Cooper are the survivors. Does that mean the rest of them are in hell? Is that what that means? Did everybody who got left behind on the ship, whether it was DJ or whoever, are they all in hell now? Is that where they all got pulled into hell and that's where they remain? That sucks. The movie does end on a really lame, stark, fake out dream sequence. That's super lame. I don't know if this is supposed to be hinting at anything, and they I thought that they were gonna say that Justin brought the evil back with them. You brought it back with you. Um, I thought that that was what was gonna happen, but no, it's just Stark having a fake out dream sequence, and then they wake her up, and then it literally just says the end. I thought it was going to say the end because they linger on it for a while, and I thought there was going to be a question mark put on it, but no, there wasn't. So yeah, yeah. Overall, it's a very effective space horror movie that kind of got cut up to hell. Haha. um, but I still always enjoy it. I don't love it, but I think it's a cool film. So there you go. Anyway, read the novel from Tor Books. Okay, so this is. I don't think that's because this says it was written by uh somebody, and it doesn't say like based on a book or anything. So I don't think so. I think that's probably a novel adaptation of the movie. So there you go. Event Horizon. I hope this was adequate enough. I think I talked for a long while, so I hope it was. As you can see, I was pushed into the bedroom. I was pushed out of my space. Every other room in this house is being taken by someone else. So you get to see my Lord of the Rings poster, one of them. I have three of them up here, and my Star Wars collection of books, which goes from ceiling to floor. Yeah, I'm a nerd. That's that. So I'll see you in the comments, and yeah, have a good one.